Fall in, people. Come on, let's go.
I hate this job.
Hey! We're recording the podcast! Shut up!
Good morning to you, wherever you are, because it is...
Morning Somewhere!
For September 18th, 2024. My name is Bernie Burns, sitting right over there. She does not hate this job. She loves this job. It's Ashley Burns. Say hi to Ashley, everybody.
Like it's a new morning. The sun is shining. The lawnmowers are going outside.
It's pure managed chaos right now. We got a house full of guests, lovely guests. Some of them will be on the podcast hopefully later this week. And today I think might be a short episode.
And perhaps we even actually mean it this time.
This actually probably will be a short episode. We are off on a full Scottish day today. We are going fishing today. And then after that, we're going to go clay pigeon shooting. Clay pigeon is a special breed of pigeon that's been selectively bred. Skeet, they call it in America skeet shooting. Why do they call it skeet shooting?
Skeet.
You shoot it. You go shoot a skeet. And then distillery. The guests are going on a distillery tour today. And then we're going to have some lovely dinner. So it's a solid day. It's even possible this morning, actually, we might have heard some bagpipes someone was playing.
It is possible that we heard
in
that.
the mist. So it's like a lovely Scottish day.
It's also completely not related to anything. It's also my mom's birthday.
Is it your mom's birthday today?
So remind me to text my mom happy birthday.
But text your
and why don't you all text my mom happy birthday as well?
Do you now, as the oldest sibling in your family? I'm the youngest sibling in my family. But as the oldest sibling, do you have the responsibility to reach out to all the other siblings and go, hey, it's mom's birthday today. Just send her a message.
Oh, God, I hope not, because I don't.
No?
Here's the thing.
You don't fill that role?
I got out of, I think, a lot of the oldest sibling responsibilities just by moving very far away.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, as soon as you graduated high school, you're like, I'm going to go live in the most expensive housing market in the U.S.
I'm going to tour all the most expensive housing markets in the world.
Jesus. You went from Salt Lake City, which is, I'd say, mid-level, right? It's like
right.
It's like in the
I mean,
median.
it's not like super high cost. It's not super low cost. It's or it was, at least when I was graduating high school, and moving out, comfortable enough. But yes, I went from there to San Francisco, which was a bit of a shock, to Sydney, which was another shock, back to San Francisco, which by then had inflated enough to be another shock.
And you thought, I'll just move to Austin after that.
And then I thought, I'm going to go freeload.
I've heard good things about this incredibly expensive market down in Texas. I'll go to that one. Austin's wild, man, because it's like San Antonio, Dallas, and Houston are all, as much as things can be in this day and age, pre-soft landing, they are reasonable markets, more reasonable. You always see, look at the house you can buy outside of Dallas, Texas, and it's like some huge ranch on like a style house. Modern construction with a huge lawn. It's like, it's $200,000. What they don't tell you is that outside of Dallas can be like 500 miles, and still be considered in the Dallas Metroplex somehow.
Right. That's like saying it's like in the LA area.
Right. It's in the Southern California region.
It's like it could be anywhere on Earth, basically.
Basically, it could be like anywhere in France, essentially, the size of the same region. So we're running and gunning. Yesterday, we caught a little bit of grief because, lighthearted grief, because we said we were going to have a short episode and it just didn't.
And then it was one of our longest episodes ever. So this one probably will be short because we do have to run out the door. But that hasn't stopped things from happening in the world. In fact, Bernie, you woke me up and said,
"Did you read this story?"
A little bit. So I know a very, very sketchy details. You help fill me in. What I know is that Israel has taken credit for a bunch of pagers exploding on Hezbollah.
This is developing information. There will probably be a lot more information. And in my opinion, there's probably people actively trying to repress some of the information. The statement that Israel has taken credit for this came from NPR. There was a source who was not authorized to talk to the public. This is according to NPR, that spoke to NPR and said that Israel was responsible for this. It's actually kind of this is kind of behind the scenes how the sausage is made. This is one of those things where this is an attack. So far, the current count is 9 people have been killed and 3,000 people have been injured, with hundreds in critical condition. So this is a real, live, ongoing human event. It also has the weird distinction of being what I think will be, it's clearly a historical event. I've never heard of anything like this before in my life. Basically, what the story as it is now is that Israel somehow infiltrated the supply chain for Hezbollah's pager manufacture. And this came from Hezbollah reacting to the fact that Israeli intelligence forces had infiltrated their telecommunications network, so they moved to pagers in order to circumvent that. Israel somehow inserted themselves in the supply chain. A lot of information here. There's a Taiwanese company called Gold Apollo, who is the brand that's on these pagers, but they weren't manufactured. They licensed their name to a company in Budapest. That Hungarian company made these pagers. Somehow the Israeli forces inserted into the pagers that were destined for Hezbollah in Lebanon and Syria. They inserted a board that had up to 3 grams of explosive material in each individual unit. And then yesterday at about 3 p.m. local time, they detonated all these pagers after months of distribution and going out to the Hezbollah network, presumably.
So they got all these pagers out to people. Or like Hezbollah theoretically bought these pagers and distributed them among their network. And then this operation sent a coded message to all the pagers at the same time, which triggered the explosive board.
I've never in my life heard of anything like this. It's absolutely insane to me.
You know what? It sounds so convoluted. I would expect it to be in some bizarro spy movie.
It sounds just like
that. In like the Kingsman movie when the guys
yes.
put brain control chips in cell phones and hands on. And it's this very like kind of like weirdly convoluted sort of plot, and yet they managed to explode 3,000 pagers all at the same time. I'm actually, based on that, almost surprised that only 9 people have been killed. Although I guess if you've got thousands of people that are injured and many hundreds in critical condition, that it's 3 grams of explosives, I guess, is more powerful than it seems.
Depends on the explosive.
3 grams makes me think, oh, that's not much.
Well,
but
3 grams in a mine that you step on is different than 3 grams that you're holding in your pocket, too.
I guess that's very true.
And it's crazy. And it's like sometimes and this is the conundrum, because this is the real life human event that's going on. Like one of the people who was killed was an 8-year-old girl, reportedly, right? And you were saying that these were all put out there and they were detonating. You hope they're in the hands of Hezbollah. What's even shocking to me that is over the course of this months, according to the reports, that these pieces of technology stayed within the regions they were supposed to. Like, I guess that's also kind of limited. Like if somebody had even stolen a pager, like there's been times I've read online where I had my phone stolen in Los Angeles and then it showed up in like Bali, like 12 hours later on Find My Phone. It was like, or a day later, like it's in a different continent.
That's some impressive movement.
Did you ever hear the story about the plumber?
Yes.
Who sold his truck in Pennsylvania, and then he didn't remove like the phone number and the information from his plumbing company from it.
And then it turned up like on camera in like these like news coverage things is like someone had mounted like a gun turret in the bed of this truck, and it was being used by militants in the Middle East.
It was ISIS had it. And then people would they'd see this photo of this plumber's truck with an American phone number on it being used in like ISIS operations, that people would call the plumber and he's like, oh my God, why, of all the things, how did it end up over there? So how did these pagers, how could you assume that it would stay in the same place? There's so many points of failure in this plan.
Well, here's the thing. We don't talk too much about politics on this podcast, but there has been the conflict between Israel and Palestine that's been ongoing for the past year. And I think one of the things that we have seen very clearly demonstrated throughout this conflict is that Israel doesn't shy away from the occasional civilian casualty.
Well, they have, they have a long history of this. Like even like when other countries, neighboring countries, develop nuclear programs, they go in and they take them out. This is like this seems more to me more complicated than necessary for today. Like they weren't even just using the devices. If they could infiltrate the supply chain, they could use that to collect data and track people. Like they could literally have GPS targets.
Know where
literally
everyone is at all times.
Apparently these pagers, I was reading, trying to do as much information as I could, get as much as I could about this. These pagers are reputed to have an 85-day battery life. Pagers don't do a lot. Pagers are weird. They're like this weird window of technology. There was even a window where there was two-way pagers where you could send a message back. That was like the shortest amount of time any technology existed before mobile phones completely took that over. But it's just a crazy story, and it's going to be something I think that's studied for a really long period of time. But it's like, that's not this moment. You know what I mean? This moment is like, we were just literally 7 days ago. It's the 18th of September. Just 7 days ago, we were talking about the 9/11 attacks. You know what I mean? And it's like, difference in terms of the scale and the enormity and the shock and awe of it. But the numbers of like human, casualties is about the same. It's about like in the low thousands, you know what I mean? But it's a lot of people that are affected by this. And these are these huge events. And so, you want to get the information about it, but you also want to talk about it with the respect that it deserves,
Yes. And again, things may change over the next couple of days as more details come out or don't.
Yeah. You'll probably have more information as soon as we're done recording this podcast. This might be one where we have to put little updates sometimes in the descriptions. We first ran into this for doing a morning show. There was an earthquake off the coast of Japan, and there was all these reports of tsunamis that then just didn't happen. And so that was one of the only ones where we had to go back in and like remove some of the information. That was really early on in the process. And we learned to just say, look, if there's breaking news, here's what we know at this point in time in our part of the world. You should find out more information. And I get most of my information from NPR, Reuters, and AP News. That's the ones I find to be, the most consistently objective when it comes to world events.
Yeah, and it is, they have the ability to update things on the fly. The podcast is static once it's recorded.
And NPR has they update very regularly. That's the one thing about NPR. So if I want to listen to a news story when I'm getting ready or doing something else and I don't have time to sit down and read an AP News or Reuters story, but usually it's AP and Reuters. That's usually what we do. What's interesting that's come up, we'll change topics here. There's been talk recently about CNN is making a shift to be more conservative. Have you heard about this? Like CNN in America has been widely touted as being like kind of like the liberal version of Fox News for a really long period of time. But apparently now, and I must have missed when this happened, it's now shifting to be more conservative bias.
I think there's a thing with the media as well where there's a kind of a compulsion to be, to be like fair and balanced, right? Or to like show both sides of a thing, which when you do that makes everyone mad.
Yes.
Right. Because if there's people on the extreme end of one thing, they see anything that says a nice thing about their opponent as favorable to that opponent, or that specifically doesn't criticize the opponent in the way that they would like as favoring that opponent. And then, so if you are fair and balanced, kind of everyone is mad at you all the time.
All the time. Everyone is mad all the time. Here's it's just an equation to me, which is if you when you talk about politics or whatever, or anything that people have a strong public opinion about, if you say 10 things that someone agrees with, but you say one thing they disagree with, they'll only remember the thing they disagree with. And they'll be like, okay, I see. I gotcha.
There's got to be something about that in the human psyche, though, because it's the same thing. Like if 9 people come up and say, I really like your shirt, like you look really nice today. And then one person comes up and goes, wow, that's how brave of you to go out of the house like that.
And somebody asks you later
and
that day.
And that's what you're going to think about. That's what's going to stick in your mind. There's got to be something from an evolutionary standpoint that makes like that small negative percentage stick in the brain so much more strongly than the good stuff.
Also,
what is that?
I think there's also on the flip side of that, I think when people do talk about issues, they tend to think of themselves as being more balanced as well. So it works both directions, right?
That's true.
Like you think you're the nice person going out and like, you're just a nice ray of sunshine out in public, like looking at people's clothing. And then you see a photo of yourself with your like resting bitch
like
face.
Judgy face. Yeah.
You're like, oh, okay.
I'm well aware what my resting face looks like.
I wasn't saying you. That was the royal you.
No. But
that was the royal you.
I'm thinking of me specifically, and I do know what my as people now say online, my face has subtitles.
Yeah, you don't need to be an expert in body language to read some people. You can just see it on their face. It's also, though, that permeates everything as well. It's like we've even talked about how we could be on mic or be on camera for 10 fucking years, and like people can watch literally you assume that they're there the whole time. I know they're not, but you literally think people are like watching your life for a full 10 years. And then you'll hear a comment by something, or, this is usually with like a streamer or YouTube personality or something like that. And you hear one negative thing and you're like, oh, that like unravels everything somehow. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, there used to be this really frustrating thing I would talk about with some of my friends who were on camera. It's like, you don't build up any goodwill. It's like, it really, if anything, as you build that stuff up, when anything goes wrong, it just gives you further to fall down. Like you don't build upon anything. There's not like, well, I followed these, person for 10 years and I heard this bad thing, but I was watching them for 10 years. Like, oh, that's the real thing, and fuck everything. Like
everything else has been a show. Yeah. It's every word out of your mouth is just another opportunity to fall.
I don't know how to put that right. You know what I mean? But it's like, it's shocking sometimes how over long periods of time, you can build up very little goodwill. And it goes back to this thing about conflict and about, when you're talking about something political, you can say 10 nice things that someone agrees with, and that doesn't register with them. But when you say the one negative thing that they disagree with, then they're like, oh, then they walk away mad from the conversation. The problem is if you try to be completely fair and balanced, you end up doing that to everybody.
Right.
You can't.
Then everyone thinks that you're an asshole.
Right. The balance part where you talk about the other side, they're like, oh, I immediately hate you. You know what I mean? It's like you didn't check every single box. So because you didn't check the last box, all the other boxes get unchecked. Does that make sense? Yeah.
I'm going to need you to go ahead and resubmit that form correctly. Thank you.
Sometimes it's hard to articulate these things, but it's like that. It is that feeling of like people do tend to walk away. The negative has more weight.
Well, let's walk away positive today. Today is a lovely day. It is in Scotland, our last week of summer.
Scorching hot day of 70 degrees here.
We've actually got a nice day out. We're going to go enjoy it. But before we do go, I would like to say thank you to the sponsors for today's episode, Chief Queso and Jake Matthew. Chief Queso, who of course has the exact correct queso ratio. So thank you for that, Chief.
It's amazing too. Some of the times I love our commenters, like in the subreddit. We'll have a whole episode where we're talking about things like this, and then it's like you mentioned nacho cheese for 2 minutes, and the whole discussion is about nacho cheese. Here's what we need.
It's the important things in life.
In my amateur market analysis of our audience, Ashley, if we could somehow make a Mass Effect game that features nacho cheese characters, we would be in such business.
If we can make nacho cheese endorsed by Commander Shepard as their favorite nacho cheese on the Citadel, I think we've got a winning combination.
We could have Commander Rico. All right, well, that does it for us today, September 18th, 2024. Do not forget to check your local reliable news sources for the latest updated information on this breaking global event. And we will be back to talk to you tomorrow. We hope you'll be here as well.
Bye, everybody.